Hey, what it do, y'all? It's your boy YouTube Blue coming back at you again on this Thursday. Um, no more Cowboy football. Like when the season ends, it just ends abruptly. We know how the season goes, where you start off, it's like a roller coaster. It's like an emotional roller coaster. You got your ups, you got your downs, and then it just boom, it just ends out of nowhere. And then you're just like, okay, what do I do now on Sundays? Well, we can watch other teams in the playoffs, and I'm looking to see the Washington football team lose to Tampa Bay on Saturday. On Saturday? Yeah, they play on Saturday. So yeah, so they're going to be a slate of um, playoff games this weekend. So we'll get to see wild card weekend and how that entails. I think the Ravens are playing the Titans, so that's going to be interesting too. So it's going to be interesting first week of the playoffs this year without Dallas Cowboys. It is what it is. So we talked about the Cowboys, picking 10th in the draft this year. Hopefully, if things open up again, if they do decide to have the draft, because it's going to be Ohio this year, so I'm gonna try to get to that if you know things prohibit. I did want to talk about in this video, basically the players that are free agents this year. But first, before I get into that, Amari Cooper had surgery today. Uh, he had his ankle scoped, so they had to get those bodies out of there, some of those loose fragments and things of that nature, clean up that ankle because he's been dealing with that for what, ankle and foot injuries since he's got with this team. So smart player though to get it done right after the season is over, so that way there's nothing hindering him going into next off season, so he can be ready to go for OTAs. Now, for a minor surgery procedure like that, it's really little to no rehab with it, so he should be right on schedule for OTAs. So shout out to Amari Cooper for that, for getting that done right after the season. Um, so there's no hangups, there's no um, carryover, so we don't have to worry about, oh well, he's got to sit out this practice because blah 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 blah. A lot of these players are tuned in. Leighton Vander Esch said himself he's going to go home for 2 weeks. He's going to come back locked and ready to go for next season. So a lot of these guys are not playing. They're ready to get it in. Well, the ones that we know that are still under contract. Now, want to give some accolades to Donovan Wilson. Donovan Wilson, we talked about, all season, even last year. Like, okay, why is he not getting the opportunity to play? We want to see him do something. Well, here you go. Donovan Wilson ends the season with 3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 71 tackles. Really good at the safety position. I think he had 1 sack and one um, interception in this last game. So shout out to Donovan Wilson. I want to see him grow and maturate in his defense for next year. Definitely a good guy to have on your team. That's what you want. That's what you want. You want guys like that, hungry and ready to go. Um, only knock I could say about him is sometimes when he tries to hit, he gets out of position sometimes, but it's cool. He'll learn that and get better at that. You know, you got him, Trayvon Diggs at the cornerback position, and I just want to talk about some of the free agents that are losing their contracts this season, um, that are going to potentially be free agents, and whether the Cowboys should bring them back or not. And I'm gonna go over the list of guys because most of them are unrestricted, but we have a few restricted, and we have one exclusive rights free agent. And I'll explain to those of you that don't know what that is. Now, um, uh, we talked about, throughout the season, some of the guys that we wanted to come back anyway. They're probably going to bring in some free agents, veteran guys, whatever, to help out with this defense too, as on top of what they can draft in this upcoming draft. A lot of people are worried about what we're going to do on defense in the draft, and I kept trying to explain to people that, like, and my man DMV talked about it as well. And I know this because I've already been doing my research on it. There are some gems in this draft on defense between the second and the fourth round. So Cowboys have 4 picks to the top 100. Trust me, we're gonna be fine in the draft. I don't want to hear nobody talking about, oh well, we shouldn't have won those games. Well, we're picking 10th. There's nobody under 10 in this draft that the Cowboys are gonna help this team. We don't need a quarterback. It's very quarterback top heavy. If you want to get one of those cornerbacks, those DBs, Surtain and Fairley, you can get one of those guys too. You could get one of those guys. They'll be available at 10 because everybody's trying to get the quarterback right now. Everybody's trying to get their quarterback for the future. We got that. They just need to sign them. So with that being said, let me get into it. So defensive tackle. Well, it's spelled Eli, but I heard that he pronounces it Eli Anku. Eli Anku, defensive tackle. We've seen him in some of the games. He's had ups and downs. Signing him to another contract, if they decide to bring Eli Anku back, they could, on a very veteran minimum, because he doesn't require you to have a big contract. If they bring him back, that's fine. He's pennies to the dollar. A lot of these guys are probably going to be pennies to the dollar in certain aspects. So there's some of these guys that's going to come back anyway. Probably for the practice squad anyway. Number 2, Chidobe Awuzie. Now I'm gonna talk about this again later on before free agency starts, because I want to do a live stream on it, because I want to get your guys' immediate reactions so we can just go through it in a live stream and talk about it. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention now real quick so you didn't have to do the research, because I did it for you. All you got to do is just watch this video and just remember the guys that I talk about, or you can write it down as I'm doing it, and then we can talk about it a couple of weeks down the road before for free agency. Now, well, obviously after the Super Bowl, so that's going to be after February. But yeah, but you know what I mean. Chidobe Awuzie, I definitely want to see him come back. I know that he had a couple of injuries with the hamstring and stuff. This year he was hamstrung, so he didn't get a chance to play to his optimal level. But he did come in and make a difference. I noticed that the defense as a whole on the back end played better when he was in the game. So it definitely behooves them to want to keep him around. Now, I'm just going to go quickly through these guys. I'll go in depth later. Tight end Blake Bell. The Belldozer. I like what I saw with the Belldozer this year. You can get him on a decent contract, maybe $2 million a year, small contract like that. He could come back to be your third guy. He can help block, and he can help do those little trick plays and trying to get the first down on when you're trying to get extra yardage. Blake Bell will do that. That's the Belldozer. Bring him back, definitely. And maybe they can go in the draft or free agency to try to see if they can find a blocking tight end too, just in case, to get somebody to help. But I know with Mike McCarthy, he likes to have a fullback, traditional fullback in his system. So he might just go get a fullback or bring back Jameis Olawale or whatever to be that fullback guy, and then just keep the 3 tight ends that we already have and re-sign Blake Bell. I can see them doing that. And I know wide receiver Noah Brown. Some of you guys, I know everybody's split on him. Some people don't care that he comes back or not. I really don't care. With your top 3 receivers, you're not going to see much of Noah Brown anyway. So, I mean, he definitely fills out the wide receiver roster. But if they really like Noah Brown, they could bring him back for a cheap deal as well, because he's like a 5th wide receiver anyway, and special teams guy. But you want to make sure you keep your guys on your core special teams as well. Defensive lineman Tyrone Crawford. I know pretty much all of y'all don't want to see him come back. I've heard many of you guys say, and many times, I want to see Tyrone Crawford gone. Well, because his contract is high. I think because he makes so much in a season, they don't want that eating up the cap no more. So they want to say bye-bye to Tyrone Crawford. Me personally, if he could take a pay cut to come back, I would like that, only because with Tyrone Crawford, I like what he brought to the table as far as like when he came back from his hip surgery. A lot of the stuff that he does doesn't show up on the stat sheet or the box score, if you will. A lot of stuff that he does is interior-wise. He eats up those blocks for the ends to eat, for DeMarcus Lawrence to eat, for Alden Smith to eat, for Randy Gregory to eat. He was huge in a couple of games. He actually had 2 sacks in one game, but it wasn't enough for these fans. And I get it, I understand. But if he can come back on a veteran min, because he already made his money, he really already made his money. If he really wants to be on this team, and that's Tank Lawrence's guy. They've been together since day one. So if he does decide he wants to come back, he's gonna have to take a pay cut. That's it. But I know the fan base wants to see him gone, so I probably don't see him coming back in that aspect. Quarterback Andy Dalton. Now, he was up and down this year. After those first 3 games, after he had uh, his concussion and the COVID, he came back and played pretty strong. Now, it's really contingent on him. We talked about this before. We've heard that Andy Dalton wants to be a starter somewhere, and he very well could be. He did enough this year for some team to maybe want him in as a starter, but I don't want him as a starter here. Now, if he comes back to be the backup, if he's okay with being Dak's backup, and he's back in Texas, and his wife is probably like, oh, let's just stay here in Texas, he might want to come back. I know the Jones family will give them an opportunity to get a contract, a smaller contract to stay if he wants to be Dak's backup. But, according to him, I know he wants to be a starter somewhere. So I'm going to say what I think is he won't be here next year because another team will pick him up to be their starter. But if worse come to worse and Andy Dalton feels like, okay, there's no other team I want to go to, I want to stay here with the Cowboys, then he may be back as Dak's backup. But that's really on him. He's one of the few players on this list that I could say that his fate depends on his self, not a team or whatever the situation may be. Offensive tackle Cam Irvin, goodbye. This guy, he was my pet cat in the beginning. I thought that he was going to do good because he was a former first-round draft pick by the Browns. And, I know that he was up and down there, too, because they didn't have a lot of offensive linemen around. I feel like a lot of his career was wasted because he hasn't played really with a full line. Now, I don't see the Cowboys bringing him back unless they're just desperate for veteran help. But I don't see them re-signing Cam Irvin. So I guess I can say goodbye on that one. This is my favorite one right here. Cornerback, C.J. Goodwin. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, you bring him back. That is your best special teams player on this team. He was basically the sole reason why we won the Falcons game. And he just does a lot. He's the leading tackler on defense. I feel like John Fossil wants to do a lot of different things with him. And then you can put him on defense whenever you're playing a running quarterback like Jalen Hurts, like they did with the Eagles game, and use him as a spy. So he's like your Swiss Army knife. He's that guy that does everything for you. So, hell yeah, I want to bring back C.J. Goodwin. Matter of fact, sign his ass today. The hell y'all doing? Shit. Long snapper, LP Lattiser. That's a no-brainer. He's coming back. I mean, he's the longest tenured player on this team outside of Jason Witten before he left. And now he's about to surpass Jason Witten as being a tenured Cowboy. They're going to keep signing LP Lattiser to 1-year contracts until he says, I don't want to play football no more. Because all you're doing is long snapping. And he does a great job. He don't miss a long snap. You don't hear his name in the game, which is good for a long snapper. You don't want to call out a long snapper's game. You don't even want to know who your long snapper is. Because if you know who your long snapper is, that means he ain't doing shit and he ain't snapping the ball right. But LP Lattiser, his ass will be back. So, that's it. Sean Lee. That's another guy that is contingent upon what he wants to do. If Sean Lee says, hey, I got an itch and a hankering to play another year, sign me for another contract, veteran men. They can do that. Or he could say, I'm going to go ahead and retire this offseason because we're still waiting for those announcements to come from older players. He could just say, oh, I'm going to retire. And then ultimately just be like, all right, well, I'll just come back and be a coach assistant or something on the Dallas Cowboys. He could do that. Jordan Lewis. Now, in the beginning, I was going to be like, bye, but he came back and started playing strong. I think they could re-sign Jordan Lewis for a decent contract. Now, if he starts asking for too much, that's when you be like, no, sir, your services are done. Center Joe Looney. Oh, I want Joe Looney back. I want Joe Looney back. I love what Joe Looney brings to the table. I love his I love his persona. I love his personality. I love everything about Joe Looney. Um, he provides that veteran depth for you at center and guard, and he doesn't do a bad job out there. He's not Travis Frederick, but he does what he needs to do. He does what he's supposed to do. I like Joe Looney. I love how vibrant he is. I love how fun he is. Because offensive linemen don't really talk, but he's that goofy guy. Like if you meet him in public, it don't matter if you're a celebrity, a football player, or just a regular average Joe. He will talk to you. He will have a conversation, and he might play video games with you. Joe Looney is just that guy. I love Joe Looney. I love everything about him. I love his character. I can't say enough about how much I love Joe Looney as a person. Now, as a football player, he's not the greatest, but he definitely does his job. He does his job, and you need a solid guy like that on your team. So hell yeah, bring Joe Looney back. Keep Joe Looney until he retires. That's how I feel. He's just that guy that you can't get rid of because you feel bad for cutting him or allowing his contract to expire because he's just that guy. Dak Prescott. Now that's a no-brainer. Dak Prescott's coming back. They'd be dumb to let him go. I probably wouldn't root for this team no more if they didn't if they let him go because that shit would be asinine. Um, now will they give him the franchise tag to give him enough time to come up with a contract? But they need to have that one-on-one contract with Dak Prescott without Todd France, his agent, because Todd France is really holding things up. Linebacker Justin March. He's a depth guy, and he's also a special team guy. He comes in, he's a third stringer. So if, I don't know, you can live without him if you want. If you draft a better linebacker than him, then okay, so be it. But he's just good depth to have on your team. Good, cheap depth. Who we got? Jordan Mills, offensive tackle. They didn't even use him this year, so bye. Aldon Smith. I spoke very highly of him. I was proud of his accomplishments from not playing football for 5 seasons and coming back and actually putting up some type of production for the Dallas Cowboys. I wasn't expecting much out of him, but what you did get out of him was enough for me to warrant him a spot on this roster and re-sign him again. And that's what I want to see. I want to see Aldon Smith come back. I think that with a full offseason, he can have even more of an understanding what the Cowboys are asking of him too, and he could ball out. Linebacker Joe Thomas. Another one of those guys that are, backups, but he does play a little more than Justin March does, and he has special teams ability. So you want a guy like that. So you want him to be out there for special teams, and he didn't play that bad when Leighton Vander Esch got hurt and they put him in there in spot duty. I think that was a good thing. Xavier Woods. I know y'all want him gone. Everybody done told me, been in my ear about Xavier Woods. He don't make no plays. Him gone. Okay, so Xavier Woods is out. So that's it with the unrestricted free agents. So we have a couple of restricted guys. We got offensive tackle Greg Senat. He definitely came in spot duty. I didn't hear his name much, which means he wasn't messing up anything. So I'm pretty sure they'll bring him back because he's a restricted free agent. So he'll come back and he'll be on the practice squad. And I'm pretty sure all these guys are coming back. These restricted guys are. Malik Turner, wide receiver. That's probably a guy that he's the 6th wide receiver, but he's never ran a route on the team. He was basically like the special teams guy. I followed him from when he was with the Seahawks before we got him. They actually played him in some games in the Seahawks, and he's not a bad receiver. And he's definitely not a bad young guy to have around, especially playing on your special teams, because whenever you need him on offense, he already knows the playbook. So that's how I feel about that. Cedric Wilson, same thing. But the only difference is he's your 4th wide receiver. So I like Cedric Wilson because him and Dak Prescott got a rapport. And I think that he had like 2 touchdowns earlier in the season. I think when we played the Washington team, he had 2 touchdowns. So keep him. Definitely re-sign him. And, of course, Antoine Woods as well. Bring him back to help out with those younger guys in that middle. He can help Neville Gallimore, and we just want to win and be great. That's it. So one last one, exclusive rights free agent, defensive end Rondell Carter. If you notice, they actually played him in this last game. He wasn't on the practice squad. He actually played in this last game. Now, I don't know if he remembers playing, but he definitely does. Now, I like what Rondell Carter brings to the table. He's a strong guy. He's a try-hard guy. And that's pretty much what it is. Yeah, and that's all I got. Let's see. I had to write all the names down so I can remember them, but I'm gonna keep this list of guys. So we're gonna talk about more of this before free agency starts, so I can basically do a live stream with you guys and get your feedback on what you think about these guys going. So you look at this long list of guys. I think that maybe half of them will be back, but we'll see. But that's all I got for right now. I know the video is kind of long, but it's because I had to go through the names. But try to watch the whole video so you guys can see what I was talking about. Let me know what you guys think about some of these guys that are going to be free agents, and let me know who you guys think will come back or not. And I'll take some of this information and we'll talk about it for the live stream whenever I do that before the free agency begins. But with that being said, Josh, your boy E2 Blue, always keep it real. Talk to y'all soon.